everyone. Today we're going to be learning about allusions and symbolism and how to interpret that in the poem Evening Song by Langston Hughes. So our objective today will be analyzing the allusions and symbolism in Hughes's Evening Song, and then you'll be able to look at how it connects to the author's purpose when you write a paragraph. So to analyze symbolism is when we use words, people, marks, locations, or abstract ideas to represent something beyond the literal meaning in a text. So symbolism gives words double meanings. We might have a word like lamb in a text, and it means something both literal and also something figurative. Symbols help us say more with less as writers, and it is a secret language between the writer and his or her audience, where we're able to interpret what the author is trying to say. Some purposes of symbolism: it can be used to add emotion, to add imagery, or to connect themes. It can also define characters and create darker material. Now, allusions help contextualize a story. Allusions are references to well-known persons, places, events, or perhaps another literary work. And it also functions a lot like symbolism because it helps you express these complex ideas and emotions in a simplified way by drawing comparisons. And allusions help us develop themes and motifs. We can see some allusions to these popular works. You might see biblical allusions referring to the Bible or religious work, classical allusions. This might have to do with Greek mythology, literary allusions, historical allusions, and political allusions. So today we're going to first look at how to analyze symbolism. The first step is you are going to read a poem and pick out any words that are used to represent something beyond their literal meaning. Then you're going to consider what you already know about that literal image, and then think about why that poet is using the symbol. What is it representing? Here's another way of showing this in a flow chart. So we would read the paragraph, identify any objects that we see, and if it's a well-known symbol, we're going to go to step 3, where we look at the common meanings represented by it, the context of the symbol, and decide on the most appropriate meaning. Now, some students get really excited about symbols and they say this symbol means this when it doesn't fit with the overarching purpose of the author's claim in the text. So we want to make sure, what is the author's meaning in the text? Was the overarching claim? And then how could the author be using this symbol to develop meaning? We don't want to just say, oh, this word means this and here's why. If there's an unconventional symbol, we might think about what are the characteristics of that object and what is the significance of those characteristics. Further, what could that mean? And then we might think about the context that it's used within the passage itself. And that will help us decide on the most appropriate meaning of the symbol, not just some strange conspiracy theory off the wall symbol. And then you'll write about it in a paragraph. So we're going to be looking at Evening Song by Langston Hughes, and this has both symbolism and also allusions. So in Evening Song, it says, "A woman standing in the doorway trying to make her wherewithal. Come here, baby darling, don't you hear me call? If I was anybody's sister, I'd tell her, give me a place to sleep. But I ain't nobody's sister. I'm just a poor lost sheep. Mary, Mary, Mary had a little lamb. Well, I hope that lamb of Mary's don't turn out like I am." So when we read this poem, we want to think about, what do we know about it? The setting is evening. We gather that from the fact it's an evening song. It's also taking place outside of a prostitute's house. There's a woman in the evening outside a doorway trying to make money, and she is calling people in to visit her. So we can make the assumption that this is a prostitute. The tone of the poem is lonely and isolated, but it has a bouncing rhythm, which is something that we could talk about later. We see that there's two speakers, the prostitute saying, come here, baby darling, don't you hear me call? But then we also have a more reflective speaker, which is the I voice in this, where this speaker is saying, give me a place to sleep. We notice that the reflective speaker who is talking, they don't have a close family to call on because they say, if I was anybody's sister, but I ain't nobody's sister. So there's a lack of kinship here. This person seems like they're alone in the world. And the reflective speaker also identifies as a poor lost sheep who hopes Mary's lamb doesn't, quote, turn out like I am. So we can imagine that this sheep that the reflective speaker is identifying with is one that we wouldn't want Mary's lamb to appear like or look like. So when we look at this, we notice that a poor lost sheep seems to be a symbol here. It is something that has a literal meaning, but also a figurative meaning underneath. So this is the symbol of a sheep, and a sheep, when we think about a sheep, we notice that's connotated with innocence. A sheep is guided by a shepherd who protects it, and without a shepherd, it usually gets into danger. And we know this because of different biblical imagery that we have seen. If you've read Psalm 23, it says the Lord is my shepherd, and then talks about how the Lord goes and prevents the sheep from wandering off. It gives the sheep all it needs. You may have also heard sheep referred to in nursery rhymes, like Mary had a little lamb. And in that rhyme, we see that the sheep is this sweet, innocent little lamb that follows Mary around because Mary loves it so. So by saying that the speaker is a poor lost sheep, it suggests that the speaker is alone, perhaps morally compromised. We gather that from the fact that it's outside of a prostitute store in the evening, and perhaps even ashamed. The speaker doesn't have anyone from which to get a place to sleep, even this prostitute. So when we look at allusions, we also want to read the poem and pick out references or works outside of the poem and think about what we know about that reference. And then we'll think about why that poet used the allusion. What effect is it supposed to have on the reader? Well, this is going to be very similar to what we just talked about, but we see that there is definitely an explicit allusion to the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb. You guys know this nursery rhyme. It goes in the song, Mary had a little lamb, it had snow white fleece, and it loved Mary so much it followed Mary to school and waited patiently for her to get out of school. But then the teacher turned it out, and so the lamb was waiting for Mary to end class. So by contrasting Mary's beloved little lamb with himself as a poor lost sheep, the speaker reveals how he or she feels unloved, isolated, and perhaps not even morally pure. So we're going to go ahead and take this and write an analysis paragraph. Remember, as we learned before, when you write a topic sentence, it needs to be arguable and focused, include the author's name, the poem in quotes, the literary technique being examined, and the meaning created through that technique. So we're going to look at symbolism, and here I'm going to write something like, in Langston Hughes, notice the author, in Langston Hughes' poem, Evening Song, the speaker uses the symbol of a poor lost sheep to suggest that one may lose their innocence without social bonds that create love and protection. So notice I have the title, we have the speaker, the symbol, and then what is the overarching topic that is being suggested by this. Now I'm going to integrate evidence, and it needs to be meaningful literary technique, and it should also be baby quoted. So I'm going to first give some context with the poem. So I will say, after seeing a prostitute calling for customers, the speaker laments about not having a sister to give them a place to sleep. The speaker then symbolizes their loneliness by identifying as a lost little lamb, evoking an image of a helpless baby animal alone in the world. So this first part is some context, letting me know what's going on in the piece. Then we have the fact that this is a symbol, so we have a baby quote of what that symbol is, and then finally some commentary that helps us understand where we're going to go with how we're going to analyze this image. So then we're going to work on analyzing the symbol, which will mean we're going to look at the connotations of the symbol, what is its effect on the reader, and how's it contributing to the author's purpose. So as I'm writing my commentary, I might say something like, both in the Bible and in nursery rhymes, lambs are innocent, vulnerable creatures that need the loving guidance of a shepherd protecting it from danger. The speaker is not the protected lamb of Psalm 23 who walks through the valley of the shadow of death without fear. Neither is it the beloved lamb Mary brought with her to school. The speaker claims to be just a poor lost sheep that doesn't even feel enough of a kindred connection with the prostitute to ask for a place to rest. Where is the sheep's shepherd? Who isn't fulfilling his duty to protect the sheep that has lost its way to the front of a prostitute's door? The speaker wishes Mary's lamb don't turn out like I am, suggests he hopes no other people experience the possible moral and social lostness he experiences. The reader feels pity for the speaker who seems isolated, friendless, and perhaps morally compromised. In my commentary here, I'm first unpacking the connotation of a lamb by suggesting that lambs are innocent, vulnerable creatures. Then in this middle section of commentary, what I'm doing is talking about how does that symbol function in the passage. So I reference some allusions, which is totally acceptable, even if I'm talking about symbols. That helps me unpack the context and the meaning of the image of a lost sheep. So I can say the lamb isn't the lamb of Psalm 23, and it's not Mary's lamb. Instead, the speaker is saying how he identifies as a poor lost sheep. And then finally, I'm adding in some style and some voice by bringing in some colons and using some rhetorical questions in my commentary, because this should feel like something that matters and feel like something that we care about. And then finally, we're going to wrap it up with, what is this symbol's impact on the audience? How does it make the audience feel? Now, in order to write a concluding sentence, we want to connect it to a global issue and also connect it back to our topic sentence. So I might say something like, without the loving protection of social relationships such as family, or perhaps even society at large, Hughes suggests more people may lose their innocence and become lost lambs. So in this concluding sentence, I'm connecting back to the idea of us losing your innocence without social bonds, and that might have to do with a global issue of society at large failing to protect people. And we also are unpacking and reminding the reader that we were looking at the analysis of a symbol. So thanks for listening, guys. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you online.